Let's look at an example of media inaccuracies through manipulation, and this is a tactic of manipulation. So this is a TED Talk by Cheryl Atkinson. It's the best 10 minutes you'll ever spend. This will make you a smarter investor, and I'll give you a couple of examples and some things to pay attention to. But you want to be a good investor, one of the mistakes people make is looking at the news. You've got to stay away from the news if you want to be a good investor. So let's look at this really fast. She discusses AstroTurf media. So what is AstroTurf media? She points out it's basically media that pretends to be grassroots organizations, usually serving some kind of special interest to make you feel like an outlier. Nobody speaks in the word outlier, so let me translate. That's like you feeling unusual or you feeling weird, right? That's what outlier is to the media, right? If they can make you feel weird. She uses an example of the Washington Redskins. I'll give you an example in a second with investing. They even manipulate Wikipedia. Never donate money to Wikipedia. Never, ever, 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 ever. It's a fraudulent organization. They commit a lot of fraud. Good example of this investing. Russia. There is currently a Ukrainian civil war. Okay, America had a civil war in the 1800s. We worked it out. Ukraine's having a civil war. They'll work it out, right? Eventually. Whether Ukraine is together, whether it's broken up, who knows? But the point is they'll work it out. What does Russia have to do with that? Well, it depends on who you ask, right? I mean, according to the media, Russia's sending weapons and blah, 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 blah. They can't prove any of this, of course. In fact, one of the congressmen tweeted an image of Russian tanks, but it turns out it was actually a long time ago that picture was taken. See, they're just committing fraud, and they don't even respect the constituents of media. Well, the thing is, if you look at investing media right now about Russia, they're talking about the war. That has nothing to do with Russia. So let's look at price-to-earning ratios of some of these Russian companies. Some of them are 1. Meanwhile, tech stocks are at 1,400. Now, I'm trying to think here. As an investor, what's a higher risk? Price-to-earning ratios of 1 or 1,400? But they're talking about a non sequitur. Oh, there's a war in Ukraine. Again, has nothing to do with Russia. Now, I happen to know as a successful investor, you want to feel weird when you invest, right? Buying stocks in March of 2009 did not feel normal. Felt weird. Very weird. Right? So it's a good thing. But the thing is like the media have no right to be telling you anything about Russia from a non-investment standpoint when they're supposed to be investing media. Period. All right? So she gives some examples of how to recognize when you're being lied to. They use words, controlling words like weird, crank, controversial, conspiracy. Controversial is their key word. If you ever see controversial in any type of media, you immediately know you're being lied to. Here's why. Because you get to decide what's controversial, just like I get to decide what's controversial. And we may not agree on what's controversial, but the point is we get to decide that. There's no right for the New York Times or the Washington Post to tell me what's controversial. Now, you keep the adjectives to yourself, Mr. or Mrs. Writer, and I will decide for myself, right? Same thing with weird, crank, conspiracy, these things. She points out they tend to claim to debunk myths that aren't myths. Favorite example of this one is wealth inequality, right? She probably wouldn't agree with me on this, but the claim of wealth inequality is often presented. A lot of Americans believe that everybody has an equal ability to become wealthy, but that's not true. Here's a bunch of data highlighting wealth inequality, when in reality they're lying. It's very interesting that Dr. Thomas Stanley, who's one of the wealth experts in the U.S., is never featured in these discussions about income or wealth inequality. I mean, I would at least get his viewpoint, and feature other people's, but he'd be interesting to hear, right? She points out they attack people behind the issues, not the facts. Anytime someone's doing a personal attack, stay away, right? They tend to question those who question authority, not the authority itself. And if you look at her bio, you'll see that that's exactly what happened to her. Do not read her bio from Wikipedia, though. Remember that. And I point out here, this is, again, my thing that I've found to identify them. They tend to be ists, and they subscribe to isms. In the investing world, I'm an activist investor, or I engage in investor activism. Get lost. Okay, don't you dare tell me what's right to invest. I'll make that decision for myself. Right? I'm not an investor activist at all. Period. it's the same thing as like an education specialist, right? No, 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 no. If you ever see someone describes himself as an ist or they subscribe to isms, stay away. They're gonna commit all kinds of fraud under the name of information. So definitely watch it, best 10 minutes you'll ever spend, and then think about it in relation to investing, right? How the media are trying to keep you away from investing. I'll cover later on the book, The Intelligent Investor, but it's something that Jason Zweig also points out as well, how the media often unintentionally describe things as terrible when that's actually the best time to invest.